From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater. Radio 111 presents Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brayan.
And welcome to The Desert Scene. Happy Halloween weekend. So, Brian, you got a costume together?
Oh, I wish. I mean, there were some costumes I had in mind. I was trying to see if I fit into my old Game of Thrones costume, Jon Snow, but that costume is tight, and I gained some weight during the quarantine, so...
A lot of people did.
I was 1 pound away from being not able to fit in that.
Yeah.
I gained about 5 pounds, so not going to be able to fit in that one.
So are you going to any big Halloween parties or anything?
I wish. I think I'm going to stay home and watch some scary movies with my parents. I think they want to see some like spooky ones like Psycho and all that.
Okay.
What about you?
I'm not doing anything. Actually, our neighbor is coming over, Dorothy, who lives next door, who's a little bit older, and she just doesn't... We don't have a lot of kids in our neighborhood, so I don't think we're going to have a lot of, but she just doesn't want to be alone in her house on Halloween, so she's going over to our house and having dinner, so we're just going to have very low key. So
I was also going to say that, I don't know, but like I've noticed recently, like the last couple of years in my neighborhood, no kids ever come over for Halloween anymore, and I've wondered why, and I asked myself, it's probably the events. I don't know, like, have you ever had kids in the past come to your house and then lately in like the last couple of years they stopped coming?
It's been now when we were in La Quinta, we had a lot more. When we used to live in La Quinta Cove, now that was a few years ago, but we had a fairly number of kids. We're in Cathedral City now, and I think last year we had 1 or 2.
Oh yeah,
maybe
same here.
That's it. I think, well, first of all, but the pandemic I think is part of it, but also I think parents, it's safer to have a controlled, once you have your own controlled little Halloween party at your house, whether you're going to, rather than, and people are worried about, wackos putting razor blades in candy. It's just a lot of issues that 10 years ago, 20 years ago weren't as big a problem.
I know that like the razor blade thing has been around for a while, but I think that there's this conversation about how like the newer generation of parents are super safety conscious, so they're trying to like let's go to the church or let's go to like a hospital.
An organized event. Yeah.
An organized event.
Yeah.
I think that honestly, I don't want to lose the tradition of kids going house to house, because I think that as optimistic as this sounds, I don't think that many cycles exist out there that will mess with your kids' candy.
No, yeah, I think it's a very small number, but the other thing is these days there's so much... Everyone's angry and tense and uptight about stuff. So I think that maybe plays into it a little bit too.
I also think that like one of the things I don't like, there's this new trend with Halloween decorations that I'm not a big fan of, is that I kind of feel like they go away from like the fun of it.
Too much gore.
Well, that, I guess even that, but I'm talking more about like the political side of it. Like when they add like a gory death of like a
political person. Yeah.
I feel like when you try to make those types of points, I feel like you're kind of pushing Halloween towards something that I'm not sure that it's about. Like
it's not.
Halloween is not, in my opinion, political by any means. I mean, you can make it the argument that anything is, but
it shouldn't be.
But Halloween is like one of those things where you literally become someone else and you try to be spooky. And like, to me, it's just bad taste to take like a picture of a famous person and have like gore in it.
I agree.
I'm not a fan of that.
But the other thing is, I've heard a couple of stories on Facebook or whatever of people who have that somebody had this dummy, and it was laying down, and its head was like the garage door had come down on its head, and there was blood everywhere. And the people are calling the police because things look too realistic, and they think somebody's really dead. I mean, to me, that's going a little too far. I
think that there's I admire the craftsmanship, but I'm also kind of like, once they start calling the police on you, you better figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think that's necessary. I mean, there's a fine line between, fun and cute and Casper the Friendly Ghost and pumpkins and, cute witches, and then getting really, really gory about it,
I was going to say, what do you watch on Halloween? Like, is there any like...
I don't watch scary movies.
Like,
no.
What about the Charlie Brown one?
I probably missed. Was that on this year? Did I miss it? Was it last night?
It was. I think it was
a couple days ago.
If anything, it's going to be today. I don't know.
That's cute. I used to always watch it as a kid. I mean, if I'm home and around and it's on, I'll watch it just because it's fun. We all need that now. We just need lighthearted nostalgia and fun kid stuff, you know?
And what I like about the, there's this like book that I saw called Charlie Brown Religion, where they talked about the Great Pumpkin and how like Linus believes in him, and it's like this really intellectual like book about it. And one of the things I was like, that poor kid Linus, he just he just believes in that so hard.
I love Linus. He's cute. Yeah.
And looking back at it, I think one of my favorite parts of that special is the part where like they pick up the pumpkin. It's like a whole like scene with like that song Linus and Lucy, the one that goes do-do-do-do. I don't know how to I can't do it, but they take the pumpkin home, and then Lucy just grabs a knife and stabs it, and he's like, oh, you killed it.
Yeah.
You killed it. And then I think I remember also I Got a Rock.
Yeah. What did you get? I got this. I got that. What'd you get? I got a rock. Yeah. It's just cute. And we could all relate to that as kids. Most people had a moment in their lives where they felt like that as a kid,
I saw this Robot Chicken sketch where like they do some wordplay where this kid's like, I got America, I got Mexico, I got Iraq.
See, I'm not a fan of Robot Chicken. Just telling you right now. Sorry.
Sometimes like they have some humor in there where I'm like surprised by how lighthearted it is, and I'm like, I got Iraq, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty tame. Like, what happened there?
I just don't find most of it funny. And Eric, my sweetie, likes Family Guy. I mean, I like Stewie and I like Brian.
Basically,
because they're cute.
The cute characters.
And then Stewie's funny, but the rest of it, and I really don't like it when when there's blood, when the rooster beats him up and he has this fight and punches out the chicken and they're all bloody, or somebody throws up for 5 minutes. I don't. That doesn't do it for me.
I saw this joke on Family Guy where this character has sexual relations with someone, and then they vomit like for a whole minute afterwards, and I thought
I can't watch that.
And they were disgusted because of the person they slept with, and I was like, okay, what's the joke? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's actually not funny. Like,
no, it isn't funny. I don't think it's funny.
Like, I feel like you have to have a good reason to have that type of level of comedy, and just having, I think that woman is not pretty enough. It's like, oh Lord. But honestly, like when I like looking back at like Halloween specials, there aren't as many compared to Christmas, because I'm trying to think. I think there's one that's called like the Monster Party, that's like Rankin Bass. Like, I don't know, I have to look it up, but like there's this Monster Party, like it's stop motion, and it's if I type in Monster Party, a dramatic movie comes out. Oh Lord. But I don't know, it's like a Rankin Bass. It's called Mad Monster Party. And it has a question mark at the end of it. And
is it a cartoon? Is it animated? Yeah.
It's animated like the Rudolph specials. It's animated by the same people. Have you ever seen this one? Okay.
Yeah, that's cute. I haven't seen it, but that's cute.
But I also was going to ask you, like, what songs are like for our viewers? What would be some songs you recommend for a Halloween party?
Well, Monster Mash. And you could do Spooky. I mean, there's not that many, really.
That's true. I was going to say Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Okay, yes. Good point. Yeah,
Thriller. Someone's Watching Me by Rockwell, which has Michael Jackson in it. The guy can't sing in it, but Michael Jackson's in it, and he sounds great. And then, what else?
I heard somebody say, I think this year, it's like, there's been so much negative and scary, so many scary things going on in the world, that's like, I don't think we need to scare ourselves additionally. And somebody else said, I don't need Halloween. I've been wearing a mask and eating candy for the last 2 years. Why do I need Halloween? I mean, there's some validity to that.
I've noticed that there are some people there that don't feel the Halloween spirit this year. Do you think that's going to carry over to Thanksgiving and Christmas?
No, because my personal opinion, because Thanksgiving and Christmas are very positive and happy and warm and fuzzy and family and love and all that. And that's part of what we missed during the pandemic, when people couldn't get together. You couldn't see your parents, grandparents, kids. So no, I think this year will be, people really look forward to that, because I mean, you still have to be careful, but hopefully if you're vaccinated, more people can get together now than could last year.
That's true. And also, like, I think with Halloween, it's one of those holidays where it's very much about community and going outside your home. So, like, I think with Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's about, like, appreciating the people in your home and having, inviting others to your home if you dare so. And I think in general, like, Halloween's one of those holidays that I think it's positive and sweet, but it's also, like, in my opinion, like, it's just kind of hard to sort of spend time with your family during Halloween in the same way that Thanksgiving
really
and Christmas.
family. But eating a bunch of candy these days, you know, if you're worried about your teeth or your health, not the smartest thing to do, you know.
I sometimes think about our viewership. I think that not a lot of them are going to go trick-or-treating with kids or anything like that.
I mean, I think every now and then, I think that as an adult, the older you get, it has less and less. But every now and then, if somebody we know was throwing a big, fun costume party, whatever, I could see that. Not every year, but at some point, But I think it's the older you get, the less it becomes.
And also because, like, I think with Halloween, you can't take the day off. So, for example, like, if you have work that day, it's not really convenient to go out in a costume and stay out late versus Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are complete. You can have those days off.
Right, those are considered, major holidays.
Have you ever worked Halloween? Like, I've worked Halloween, and I can tell you that it's not as fun because of the fact that you do have to work.
I'm sure I have. It just doesn't stand out in my brain, as being an issue either way. But yeah, it's not.
And also, I think that another reason why people aren't in the Halloween mood this year is because I think a lot of people felt cheated last year because Halloween was on a Saturday last year. And so that was the day, like, kids can stay out a little later and, not have to worry about school the next day. And they can just go home and rest. And because of the pandemic, there was limited amount of Halloween events. I'm sure people still went out of their way to do things, but this year, because it's on a Sunday, Monday is the next day. Like, I can't do anything for Halloween tomorrow because of the fact that on Monday I have to wake up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So I don't want to wake up feeling bad. I don't know if you're like me, but if I have something to do at 8 a.m, I wake up at 7 because I don't want to feel horrible. I have to give myself that half an hour of, I feel horrible. And then at 7:30, I wake up and I'm all perky.
Yeah. I definitely need some wake up time. The other thing is, real quick, when we were kids, we also sometimes would, I don't even know if it's still around, trick or treat for UNICEF. United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. You had this little cardboard box thing, and you'd say trick or treat for UNICEF, and people would just put in pennies or nickels or money, and you'd collect money rather than give me a bunch of candy. So I don't even know if they're still around. People still do that.
I think that they still do. Yeah, they do, actually. They still have, like, I think they have a virtual fundraiser.
Okay, which makes sense. Yeah.
And I know that, for example, like, they went out of their way to put this campaign out, like, trick or treat for UNICEF is not canceled. Like, I do remember the ads. I wish that they put out the ads more.
We used to do it as kids. I remember several years we did that instead of asking for candy. So.
And I think with that, and sometimes they just give you the candy too.
And that was fine. We didn't have a problem with that. If you want to do both, that's great too. All right, we got a lot of entertainment news and some great guests coming up a little bit later. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza.
And we're back on the Desert Scene. So our next segment, we're going to talk to the fabulous Chip Miller, who's a local and national filmmaker. We're going to talk about gun safety on sets. But we wanted to get into some other aspects of the whole tragedy and the Alec Baldwin thing. And I know, Brian, you were talking about, Alec Baldwin is a controversial figure. He kind of attracts. You either love him or hate him, most people. And so you knew that some people were going to take this opportunity to just slam the heck out of him. So let's talk about that a little bit.
You know, for me, I was saying this on Flicks and Picks that I do believe that there are good faith criticism of what happened. I feel like if you said, hey, Alec Baldwin and everyone on set should have been more responsible, they should have been
a lot of people should have.
Yeah, like everybody on set should have had training. But this is my thing about it. If you're going to critique, for example, Adam Baldwin, and I said this last...
And he's no relation, right?
No,
okay.
No relations.
Who is he? Who is Adam Baldwin?
I'll show you a picture, but
okay. Is he a radio host or who is he?
No, he's an actor.
Okay.
He's an actor.
Okay.
He's an actor who's known for having, you know, the opposite of the beliefs that Alec Baldwin has. Like you might have seen him in Starship Troopers, Full Metal Jacket, Firefly. So he's been in a couple of things.
Okay. All right.
But I basically I saw this article that I don't know if you're like me. Sometimes you stumble onto an article and you're not sure about the news source, and then when the moment you read it, it's like, okay, this is a little biased. Like, because one of the things the article said was Adam Baldwin, who knows how to shoot a gun, and I'm saying they're like, Adam Baldwin basically called out Alec Baldwin, saying, you know, like, you criticize gun owners and all that stuff, but you don't know how to shoot a gun. And my first thought is, here's what I would have done instead of doing all that nonsense of criticizing it. Why, if you are an actor who knows how to shoot a gun, why don't you offer to go on set and go talk to Alec Baldwin and talk and figure out, like, hey, what happened, man? Like, I know
be part of the solution. Yeah.
And that's what I said last segment, because when I did Flicks and Picks earlier today, I was saying that it is okay for you to extend across the aisle and say, you know what, you made some comments that I don't agree with about gun safety, so I'm going to go ahead, because what happened, that didn't need to happen. Maybe we should talk and have a conversation about this. But I think that it's a lot easier to just generate tweets.
Pile on. It's piling on. Yeah.
And I feel like it all stems from the fact that, like, him and another commentator, I like to call them the commentators, because that's all they do is just talk. And Adam Baldwin's not acting right now, so I'm like, okay, well, you know, they didn't hire you.
Consider the source, you know, consider
that source. But Candace Owens basically said this, where she basically said, she deleted this tweet. She's like, you know, this would be a poetic justice if someone didn't die, if he didn't murder someone. And I was sitting there like, and I said this last show, I'm promoting my show, sadly. I was like, I was going to say, like, I think that it's like me saying, wow, Bonnie, this food poisoning my friend here that you made, you know, it would be poetic justice because I hate your food, but too bad they killed someone. Like, that would be like,
it's unnecessary. That's totally unnecessary.
Like, someone's dead. Like, why do you have to say that? And I feel like also it's one of those things where people want to attack someone politically for and using a horrible accident to do it. It's like, I feel like it's so much easier to just do that than to actually come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And in the case of Candace Owens,
now what's her? I know the name, but what's her claim to fame?
She's basically famous for being a right-wing conservative.
Is she on Fox or on one of those?
She gets to be on Fox every once in a while, but she's an independent one, and I think she just didn't need to say that. That's my first thought.
Of course she didn't. No.
And also, I feel like if your concern is like, well, you know, he made fun of Donald Trump on SNL, which, not to be that person, but it wasn't.
It's a totally separate issue. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with it. You know, I mean, that's just childish. I mean, that's really childish. And, you know, I think it's a tragedy. I think there were, and we'll talk to Chip about this, like I said, there were several checkpoints along the way that all failed.
Yes.
You know, it's not one person's fault. Does Alec Baldwin bear some responsibility? Sure. Does the assistant director handed him the gun and said it was cold? Sure. Does the armor of the woman? There's all kinds of people that bear responsibility.
Yeah, and they all agree that they're not sure how the live rounds came on set. And also, right now, we're going to talk to Chip about this, but like The Boys and The Rookie, 2 TV shows that were known for having a lot of gun violence and all that, they're going to stop using live rounds.
Good.
And they also decided that if they're going to use guns, they will be the airsoft ones, like the ones that are literally for toys, like the toy guns, and they'll use CGI.
Yeah, which is what a lot of sets already do. And it's apparently just as realistic. And boy, you know, I would far rather watch a TV show or a movie and say, that bullet just fired. Well, it doesn't look all that realistic. Then risk somebody dying.
And also because, like, when you go back and watch the 1950s with the movies from the 50s
who cares? It's not that big a deal, if it doesn't look 1,000% realistic.
Like, I was watching High Noon, and the final scene where the villain gets shot, he falls down, and you can tell it wasn't entirely, real, but you still bought it because it's a great film.
It's a movie. You're suspending disbelief. Yeah.
And no one genuinely wants to shoot anybody on set. So,
and Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin has had some bad PR over the years and been known kind of as a jerk and wasn't a great husband to Kim Basinger. He's not my favorite person in the world, but you shouldn't pile on because of this issue. It's a tragedy.
And not to use this to make yourself more famous.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk to Chip Miller, a local filmmaker, who's going to give us his professional view on this whole situation. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
Bonnie and Brayan continue with the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and I'm really excited that we're joined now by Chip Miller, who is based here locally, but has worked all over the country and I guess all over the world. A prolific filmmaker and director. I put out his bio with all his films, like 4 or 5 pages of things that he's directed and also produced and art direction and that kind of stuff. Chip, hey, thanks for being with us today. How are you doing?
My pleasure. Good to hear your voice, Bonnie.
Yeah. So, and it's Desert Cam, C-A-M. That's your studio. And are you based in Palm Desert or in India? Or where are you actually based?
Well, we have a little stage in La Quinta, but our offices are in Palm Desert, and then we have an office in Burbank at Warner Brothers.
Okay. And you've been in this business a long time. How many years would you say?
Oh, well, let's see. I moved to Hollywood in 81, and I sort of started as a development executive for a few years. So technically, as a producer-director, it didn't really kind of kick off till around 86, 87.
And would you say directing is your number one? I know you do a lot of different things.
Yeah. Well, directing, screenwriting, producing, editing, kind of in that order. Then, of course, I have other things that are not related to film, like I have a band and all that stuff. But for film, mainly directing, writing, producing, and editing. Okay,
one more quick question, and then we'll get into the Alec Baldwin thing. What's your latest project that we can look forward to that you want to just plug?
We're actually doing a project of, strangely enough, something that's not my normal genre. We're doing a family picture with Kevin Sorbo.
Okay.
We start that in February, and we've got a series we're doing actually. It's an indigenous series with an indigenous heroine, a female heroine.
Excellent.
We're doing that at Amazon Prime. That's keeping us busy, and we've got several things planned for 2022. A nice, ambitious slate.
Excellent. All right, let's get into the Alec Baldwin thing. So I wanted to have someone on the show who had a lot of practical experience in the film industry, who's maybe dealt with this specific issue. So if you would, give us your general view of the incident and how prevalent is this kind of thing?
Well, it shouldn't be at all, because normally these things fall into, you've heard it all on the news before, so I'm sure I can't add too much new to this scenario. We all know what an armor is at this point. We all know what an AD is at this point. But the AD that's a touchy scenario, because AD stands for assistant director, and most directors in the business, most filmmakers in the business will tell you they actually have a problem with that title. That's been going on since the 40s, that it should really be more like either stage manager or it should be maybe assistant to director. So a lot of people see assistant director and they think they're like co-directing the movie, and so there's often clashes between the director and the crew and the AD. So an AD can make or break a production. If they've got a really rough personality and they're really pushing, they can aggravate a crew, they can aggravate time sequences, they can aggravate scene setups. If they're great, everything moves like smooth as silk. I'll give you an example. About in the late 90s, my wife, Travis, who's a producer and an editor, she was working on a big film in Long Beach. I won't mention the film, but it was made national news when the accident happened.
Okay.
You may remember it. It was in Long Beach, and a big explosion took place on a ship. and there were 5 stuntmen all went to the hospital. 3 of them with serious burns. My wife was right there when that happened, and the reason that happened is because the AD refused to do safety tests. He said, "We have no time. We already did one." So he kind of broke the golden rule, and my golden rule, and most people's golden rules on a set is you assume nothing and you confirm everything. 4 simple words we always say to a crew. So I'm not sure what took place in Santa Fe, but I actually did work with several of those crew people in Santa Fe when we did a concert there a few years ago. So they're very savvy crew, very savvy people. Even though it's not Hollywood, they know what they're doing. I don't know where the AD comes from, but I suspect he comes from the Albuquerque area. So it seems to me that the AD kind of stepped around certain bounds, didn't follow certain procedures. He should have never had his hands on a gun at all. An AD does not handle weapons or even touch a weapon, even a prop weapon. So why he did that and pulled it off the truck and yelled at, I have no idea. Most people are still scratching their heads. In terms of the armor, my only comment there, and I'll try to stay politically correct, is that there's a big move right now in the industry for diversity, and that's important. In fact, a lot of the projects we're doing involve diversity big time. But also with diversity, sometimes you have a tendency to push people into positions
they're not ready for.
And they're not ready for it. So I know nothing about the armor. I'm sure she's a very charming young lady, but as soon as I saw that she was Hispanic and she was a female and she was young, I thought, seems to me like, somebody was pushed into a job they weren't quite ready for yet. So that was a delicate situation. The actor, unfortunately, is always the one that's put in the bad position. It wasn't Alex's fault by any means at all. So it's a touchy thing, but it should have never happened. Obviously, we all know that Bruce Lee's son was killed in a gun accident many years ago. So they're spaced out enough that it's not like a recurring problem. But you do get sloppiness sometimes on a set, especially if it's a non-union picture or if they mix non-union with union. And I think Alex's picture, from what I understand, was a very low-budget film. And when you have a low-budget film, you need to keep rates down, so sometimes you can't afford a union person, so you get a non-union person, and you just kind of mix the two with waivers. So I don't know if that's the reason why they had to hire a lot of low-budget people and beginners and stuff. I really don't know, but I'm sure whatever it was that resulted in that accident, it was obviously human error. And who's human error? Obviously, that's still under investigation.
And I don't know if this, but I had heard through news reports that apparently that some union crew members had walked off the set earlier that day because of safety concerns.
Yeah, a half an hour before. I think an hour and a half before. That shocked me. In fact, I knew that before it hit the news because my partner's wife works at HBO, and so she's with all the unions, and she heard that within an hour of the announcement that the accident happened, that there was crew that had walked off, crew. So that's sad.
I have two main questions for you. First of all, so if the AD, who should have been handling the gun? Does the armor hand the gun to the actor?
Strictly the armor and the prop master. So in this case, it would be the armor. He would take the gun, the prop master would order it and accompany the armor, who would walk up to the actor holding the gun straight down. He would announce what condition the gun is in, and of course it should be always a cold gun. It should never have a live ammunition on set. I don't know why that happened. That's how it would be done. The AD is nowhere near that. But I think in the aggression of pushing for a schedule, the AD probably just grabbed it and just, went beyond what he was supposed to be doing.
And you just answered my next question, because I had heard that live ammunition is never supposed to be on a movie set, correct?
Never. The only time live ammunition enters into a production is when the crew leaves the set. There's a special section of a sound stage, if they're on location, there's a special area, because maybe they want to get the actual sound of the gun and the flash and the smoke that you can't get with blanks. But then there's nobody there but a stuntman in armor, a separate camera, and no crew, no actors are anywhere near it. But otherwise, on a set, no live ammunition.
Chip, Brian has a question for you.
Well, I guess it's not so much a question, but it's like, it's just, I know you were saying earlier that sometimes people get put into positions, and I think one of the things we have to remember is that the armor, even though she had said, I wanted to have more meetings and I wanted to have more conversations about safety, I think because she was so young and so inexperienced that maybe she didn't have like the actual power to do that. And so I think that's another situation where like sometimes we have to not underestimate the potential instincts, because I know that maybe her skill set might not be there, but it could be that she had some really good instincts regarding the situation. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, no, I actually think that was that qualified her, in my opinion, when I heard that interview that she gave where she said, no, I was scared to take it. I wasn't sure I was right for the job yet. So, yeah, she should have said that to the producers, and if the producers had that sense, they should have tested her, had more meetings with her, or made another decision. So she went into it a little bit apprehensive, and it's kind of a shame now that, a lot of the clouds are going to be dumped on
her. Yeah. What do you think about? I've heard people say I guess there are a lot of film sets and television sets where they use CGI for the gunshot, and I guess that's becoming a little bit more of the trend. What's your feeling on that?
Well, the 3 or 4 times I've been involved with projects that involve guns, it's always been in post-production. We do it. We never have even flashes on the set. So, yeah, that is kind of the more routine way to do it. However, there's another phenomena taking place in the industry besides the diversity thing, and that is when the word content entered our world about 3-4 years ago. Now suddenly productions are filling vast holes. So productions are moving faster. Productions are going into production quicker. Corners are being cut. Scripts are not being developed enough. Even when you look at stuff on television these days, you notice how sometimes the sound is terrible.
Yeah.
Or the music. And I'm sure you know of all things, Bonnie. The music in the background of a lot of these films are very synthetic, and they sound like library music. So it's just they're cutting corners to fill quota, basically.
Two other questions for you. It just went right on me. What would you like to see happen from this, and who do you think ultimately will bear responsibility, maybe legal responsibility?
Well, legal responsibility, unfortunately, is probably going to fall on the production company because when you hire someone, they're under your jurisdiction, under your banner. So yeah, them and their insurance are going to take the hilt on this. The AD will probably have his career ruined because this is not the first time. I understand
he was fired from something else. I heard. Yeah. And what changes would you like to see in the industry? Hopefully, something positive could come out of this.
Well, something positive always comes out of tragedy, unfortunately. So I would just obviously like to see higher safety standards. We may have also dropped some of our normal safety standards that we normally would have because after the pandemic had shut production down for 2 years, everybody is so anxious to get back into shooting. So I think maybe some corners were cut or some things were overlooked just in the anxiousness to be back in business again. But safety is always the key. You can't, like I said before, 4 simple words: assume nothing, confirm everything, and that goes for everything on the set.
Yeah, and Alec Baldwin not only is an actor, he was, I guess, one of the producers. So he's going to bear a little more responsibility because of that.
He'll bear it. Well, he'll bear it because he's part of the production company. So Alec's company, I mean, the insurance will take care of everything. It's not going to hurt his career as an actor, but he will bear it, unfortunately, as will the production company.
And what do you feel about? My personal opinion is I don't want to see this film completed. I would not go see it.
No, but it will be, and people will go out of curiosity, just like they've done with when the Twilight Zone.
With Vic Morrow,
So it happens. Curiosity gets the best of people, and also the investors that invested in this film. But somewhere down the line, they're going to demand this thing goes back into production, or they get their money back. So it'll come back into production somewhere down the line. They might change the title. I have no idea, but it won't sit in limbo unless legalities tie it up.
Yeah. And what about legalities, like maybe what could the poor woman who was killed, her family sue or something to stop it? I mean, that could hold things up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say that there might be also a push towards it could be the opposite where Helena's family would want her work released because
it was her last project.
Yeah, because
maybe
she did shoot some things, so it's not like she isn't completely divorced from it in that sense. Sadly.
Yeah, the thing is, though, that the problem they're going to face creatively is that the picture's not finished.
Right.
There's still a lot more to shoot, so obviously they have to bring in another DP, and if they bring in another DP cinematographer, that's a different style, a different look, a different feel, because every one of them have a different feel. So that's a decision they're going to have to make. Do they want to salvage part of what she did and just come in with somebody else and call it a different style purposely, mix and match, or try to match hers? I don't know, but it's not a completed film yet, so whether or not her work survives or
is
whether
a question,
that element of her, They may shoot the whole thing over again.
Yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. Chip Miller, thank you so very much for being with us. I really wanted to get somebody with a professional perspective. You really added a lot. So best of luck on your next project. Come back again and talk about that. And thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I enjoy listening to you guys, so thank you so much, and best to you, Bonnie.
All
Good
right.
to talk to you
Thank
again.
you so much, Chip Miller. All right, we'll be back.
Care now. Bye. Take care, Brian.
Okay.
Take care.
We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
From musical theater to literature and all the other stuff we enjoy in between, making desert life so vibrant. You're listening to Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza and the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
You know, Bonnie, as I was saying earlier, that I wanted to bring up this point because I know that we're talking about this subject for a while now, but you know, the one genre of film that hardly has as many accidents is horror films.
Which is kind of interesting when you think about it. Yeah.
Like, I know that they've had accidents, like with The Exorcist, the actress Ellen Bernstein, got pushed a little hard, but she didn't, nothing.
No major
accident. It's weird because like these accidents happen and you see them on screen, but like you would think that with slasher films, that
because there's so much simulated violence that you'd have more accidents.
Yeah.
Talk about the one with the padding.
The Scream 3.
Yeah.
So like I wanted to talk about this one because this one was surprising to me. But so Neve Campbell was basically in Scream 3 for about 20 minutes. So I imagined that she was super rushed and all that. So I imagine that's what happened. But right now I'm buying time because I'm trying to remember the actor's name. Scott Foley. Okay. So Scott Foley plays the killer in Scream 3.
Okay.
And so the moment that he's revealed, him and Neve Campbell have this fight, and there's this moment where like Scott Foley is just kind of has his back turned, and Neve Campbell's character Sydney stabs him in the back with a I think it was like an ice pick. And so what had happened was that the actor Scott Foley had padding, and because they were going to use an actual ice pick, and so she stabbed him, and it turns out that the ice pick broke through the padding and actually stabbed him in the back, right where his shoulder blade is, and so he managed to get away just fine, but afterwards he said that he had to go get stitched up a little bit
at the hospital, make sure he was okay. I mean, it wasn't, but that had to hurt. I would imagine. Yeah.
No, it definitely hurt, but it's interesting because like I saw this documentary right this morning on Vox. It's on YouTube where they talk about like the ways that slasher films go out of their way to use like fake stuff to really simulate like violence, but that they're really safety concerns. For example, like they have to move the knife. Like for example, in the famous scene in Scream, with Drew Barrymore, if you notice, her body moves a certain way so you don't see the retractable knife go through, but they still have to be careful with it. So they try to do this thing where you don't see the knife being pushed in, being retractable, but you also do it in an angle where you don't directly touch her. So when you watch it, it looks real. Because of your mind plays tricks on you, making you feel like it's happening. And also, if you think about it, most horror films, they don't show people getting stabbed. Like, think about it. Psycho, you don't see the knife really go in.
Yeah, you see the knife go up and down, and then you see blood go down the shower, but you don't see. You're right.
And also in Scream 2, when Jada Pinkett Smith gets stabbed in the beginning, it's weird because I forget that's her.
I haven't seen any of those. So
Scream 2, they show a part where he stabs her, and she looks down, and the camera, the black bars, the aspect ratio cuts it just enough so that way you'll see like his hand, but you don't see like the knife or anything like that. And the idea is that like it's sound effects. They use sound and they use like. What they do is they don't show the puncture of the weapon as much. They show, let's say, the aftermath, and that's what really convinces people. And I think that that's actually a really smart way of like simulating on-screen violence, because again, I'm never going to advocate for movies to be less violent, but I also believe that like you should be always careful while making a movie. And it's interesting that the horror genre, which always gets labeled with this moral panic of like destroying society, that they're the ones who are actually going out of the way to protect people. They also use CGI knives.
Yeah.
So Scream 4, it's interesting. Scream is the history of knives.
Yeah.
But Scream 4, they use CGI.
Yeah.
And the knife, and I can show you how it looks, but
I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So you like, I'm getting the feeling that you kind of like horror movies in general.
yes.
Wait, so tell me why you like them. I'm curious about that.
I think horror films, if they're well done, can actually get into... They can be both hopeful in a lot of ways, because at the end of it, after all the struggle and everything, somebody
The bad guy
survives,
sometimes
defeated.
loses.
And
Yeah.
I think I love seeing that. I also love seeing horror films like Eve's Bayou that really examine like the way our society looks at things, or the way that we have conversations. I think there are very unique ways.
If there's
of
a
having
bigger
good
story behind it,
story, yeah.
just not besides just
and also how we
slash.
feel about ourselves. So like if you see a horror film where a woman is having, like Repulsion, a movie about a woman who feels completely losing control of her sexuality, then that's really powerful. I think movies like that are really powerful.
But then I'm wondering is, does a lot of violence in that movie always enhance the story? Is my question.
Not always. I do
Okay.
believe that like if you don't know how to tell your story with violence, and I don't know.
Don't just throw it in there for you know.
Yeah, I've seen some horror, like Halloween Kills came out, and I'm tempted to say that that's a movie that they wanted to make a super
It's a new
violent-
one with Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they wanted to make a super violent movie as opposed to like a great movie.
Yeah.
So like I've had some people really not like it for that reason. I do think, for example, like Psycho is very good about it. Psycho, Nightmare on Elm Street, that there are certain horror films that can pull off violence, but I think violence should be the seasoning on top of a great story.
That's a great way to put it. That's a great way to put it, Brian. I'm very impressed with that. All right, we're gonna totally switch gears our next hour. We're gonna first guest is gonna be Patricia Welch, a wonderful singer, who's got a big show, new show at Indian Wells Resort. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater, Radio 111 presents Bonnie G. and Brian Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and we're now totally switching gears to more happy, pleasant stuff. No more guns and violence. We're talking to Patricia Welch, who is a fabulous singer. If you haven't heard her around in the desert, you need to go out and hear her. And she's got a new show, new season of shows at the Indian Wells Resort Hotel. Hi, Patricia. How are you?
Hi, Bonnie. I'm fine, thank you.
So
Thank you for having me on your show.
Of course. So this is so exciting because you're teaming an Evening of Elegance. I'm looking at your flyer with you and Mark Antonelli, and he's fabulous. He sings Josh Groban, Michael Bublé, and Andrea Bocelli, and of course your background is amazing. Started with Yul Brynner. So tell us about how this show came together with the two of you.
Well, I actually have been working at the Indian Wells Resort for a few years, and I've been doing my own show, which is pretty taxing, standing up there 3 hours singing.
Yes, it is.
And I was talking to my boss, and he wanted to make some changes, and so I said, I don't know if I could do 3 hours again next season, honestly. And he said, well, do you know of a male singer? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. A very, very good one. In fact, I think, in my opinion, I think he's the best male singer in our valley. He is just fabulous. And so that's how it all happened. And so when we got together, we all sat down, we penciled in a show, and then Mark and I started rehearsing, and we're working up 30 duets for our show. Now, of course, those 30 duets won't be in one show. What we do is we change the duets out, And every night that we have a show, which is Fridays and Saturdays, we do 10 duets in that particular show. And then maybe like for the next weekend, we'll do 10 different
ones.
duets, or we'll swap them out, right? So that we give the audience different solos, different duets, so they have a fresh show every time they come.
That's fabulous.
And we launched last weekend, by the way, and so this is our second weekend. We have a show tonight.
Excellent. Now, so was it difficult to sit down and come up with, I mean, and there's a billion songs out there, but, you know, kind of come up with who's going to do what and find the duets? Was that a challenging process, or did it all seem to sort of come together easily?
It was challenging, and I'll tell you why, because there really aren't a lot of male-female duets that are really beautiful. Our show is called Evening of Elegance, and so we honed in on duets that are really, really beautiful, some familiar, some not so familiar, that people, you know, that we could, and then some songs we turned into duets that were solos that we made into duets. So it has been a lot of work, but, you know, good things happen when you work hard, and so we've been working on it pretty much all summer long, and we've come up, as I said, with a 30, actually I think we're at 31 duets that we're working on. We don't have them all worked up yet, but, you know, it's little by little. But we have some really beautiful duets like Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, that's great.
You Raise Me Up, and Up Where You Belong, and Ness and Dorma, because Mark and I both have, not only do we have that, we have heads and tails. We both can sing pop as well as the legit. And so, you know, My Heart Will Go On.
Yes.
Both sides now, Sarah Bareilles and Josh Groban did a beautiful rendition of Both Sides Now, which is a little modern version of it, you know, so we do that, and, you know, it is challenging, but it's fun. But the nice thing about it is, like last night when we did our show, I can sit down for 25 minutes when Mark is doing his solos, and then he can sit down for 25 minutes when I'm doing, so we give each other breaks. And then we're up there together. It just makes it such an easier show. You know? And the audience is really receptive. In fact, this is the first time that I've performed at the Indian Wells Resort that the audience stays the entire time of our show. What a compliment that is.
Absolutely.
They're there from 5:30 ordering their dinners, and then they sit there. And we do end the show a little early just to give people a little break. You know, it's better to give them a little less than more. But we start the show at 6. We do about an hour and 15 minutes for the first set. We take a 15-minute break, and then we finish it out with another set, and we're done. So we're done by 8:45. Okay. And then a lot of people like to stick around and talk to us afterwards, which is nice.
Now, do you sing with tracks, or do you have a trio behind you?
We sing with tracks.
Okay.
But we have really good tracks.
Yeah.
Mark especially. I don't know where he digs them out, but he finds the most beautiful tracks, beautiful arrangements. So.
And so let's talk about your background a little bit. So where are you from originally?
I was actually born in Steubenville, Ohio.
Okay.
I was born into an Italian family. I'm 100% Italian on both sides, mother and father. And then I went off to studied with Metropolitan Opera Spinto, Francis Yen, and then after college I went to New York, and that's where I got my big break with Yul Brynner. I played the role of Tuptim in The King and I from 1980. This is going to really date me, but 1980 to 85, and then I went all over to Las Vegas, and then co-starred with Robert Goulet, and then I was a featured soloist in the Wayne Newton show.
Wow.
And then I ended up in the desert with my husband. My husband has 5 children here in the desert, and so we moved here to be with family. And I didn't really know what kind of a career I would have after leaving Las Vegas. I thought, well, I guess this is it. Little did I know that I'm working more now, and I'm loving it more than I ever did in the past.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, I mean, of course, everyone loves his voice. What was Robert Goulet like personally to work with? Was he easy to work with?
Absolutely easy, sweetest guy. You know, they say every actor, singer has an ego. I guess we all do. But he was the nicest, most generous guy. I sat in the limousine with him and his wife whenever we were on any road trips. We had dressing rooms, and he had a dressing room right next to mine with his name real big on the door. My name was real big on the door. I was like, oh my gosh, they're giving me like equal billing with him.
Wow.
I was floored.
Yeah.
And he, and he didn't say anything about it negative. He was fine. He was cool, And he would joke with the band before the show, before curtain up was up, he would just stand there and tell jokes, and then the curtain. And then my mic went out one night when we were in Reno. I blew a capsule in the microphone. It wasn't my mic, but it was the house mic.
Yeah.
And Robert Goulet traveled with this beautiful, like gold mic. I guess it's really expensive microphone. And we were doing a duet together, and he's just like handing the mic over to me and back to him till they could, after that song, then they came with another mic. But I mean, during that duet, we were sharing his mic.
Wow.
He was just so gracious. Just really wonderful guy to work with.
Same question about Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner, very, very intense, very quiet, never said anything unless it was very important. I think Yul Brynner was a very, very intelligent man, and he was very, he sat of course he came on stage right after I sang My Lord and Master, which was one of my solos in the show, but he sat there and watched me every single show, all the way to the end. They were giving him oxygen at the end. He was very sick during I did the last 6 months on Broadway with him, and he was really, really sick. We had to cut the show short after 6 months, but he sat there and watched me sing, and I mean, he was just really wonderful guy too. I mean, I don't have a bad thing to say about it. They were all good to me, So same with Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton had a family. His family was involved. That was fun. His mother-in-law did concessions. His sister-in-law did PR.
I love that. That's great.
Lawyer. His little girl, who was like 3 or 4 at the time when I was doing the show with him, came in my dressing room, sat with me, and she would like zip me up and get my jewelry ready, little tasks that she was just made her feel like she was part. I mean, it was just a family show. We all traveled together. It was wonderful. And then we were of course, in Las Vegas too.
Yeah. So have you had, and I know you said when you moved to the desert you weren't sure, but have you had the career you thought you would? Has it surpassed your expectations? I mean, I know you're still going. It's not like it's over, but have you been surprised at your arc your career has taken?
I am surprised because, as I said, I didn't think anything would really happen. I thought I'm just going to go to the desert and sit in the country club and have pina coladas at the pool. But I'm working really hard, but loving it. I mean, the lyrics. When you're talking about all the songs and the lyrics and making sure, and that's a challenge with Mark and me with our duets because. We had to split it up, like you sing this phrase, I sing this phrase, you sing this line, I sing this line, and trying to get that right. We don't always have it perfect, but we go with the flow, and we try to, we don't try to step up. We try very hard not to step on each other's lines, but if we do, it's like, okay, we just go with the flow, and the audience doesn't know the difference. As you know, you're a performer, you know.
You just keep going, yeah.
That's right.
So do you, I mean, with the kind of voice, the classically trained voice, I'm assuming, do you when you're not working, if you have a break, do you practice every day? Do you vocalize every day?
Oh, yes, every day. I practice every day, and I'm sure Mark does too. Yes, every day. Of course, like there is, like on Sunday after Friday and Saturday, I do kind of chill on that. In fact, last Sunday I was in my pajamas all day.
Yeah. And
just like chilling,
You got to do that too, yeah. A question I always like to ask singers, I've had a lot of singers and performers on the show, is when you have time off, if you ever get a chance to go see somebody else, when you go to see a singer live, what are you hoping to see? What do you want to see or see/hear from them?
Well, I just want to be entertained, and I'll tell you, we have a wonderful pool of fabulous entertainers in this valley. I mean,
there's a lot of folks,
amazing. I was just on the Mark and Tony show. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they have a YouTube channel show, and they've had some amazing talent. And you know what? Their show has made me appreciate the talent that we have in our valley, because I didn't realize the caliber of the talent that we have until I watched them being interviewed and listened to them. And so I'm just looking to be entertained, and I'm looking to, the kind of material that they choose, and it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to watch the personality behind the person as well. Because we all have that, you know, and you can't take that away.
All right, I want to make sure we get this in. An Evening of Elegance, Fridays and Saturdays at the Indian Wells Resort Hotel, starring the Desert's rising star Mark Antonelli, again, Josh Groban, Michael Bublé, etc., and of course, former Broadway star Patricia Welch. Let's see, Friday and Saturday, dinner and entertainment, 6 to 9 p.m. Make reservations, because the shows get sold out. You can call 760-797-8700 or manual at indianwellsresort.com. Okay. Entertainment fee, $25. It's a beautiful room. It's a really nice room, too.
It is, and they put all brand new chairs in there, these beautiful high-back, cushiony chairs. You know, you just feel like it's really elegant. I mean, the major changes. And it's called IW Live now.
Okay.
The showroom at the Indian Wells Resort Hotel.
All right. An Evening of Elegance, Mark Antonelli and Patricia Welch. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on the new show. I'll have to come check it out one of these days.
Thank you for having me. Oh, please do, and please let me know, Bonnie, okay?
Okay, I will.
All right.
It's a deal. All right.
Email me.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
Take
care. Patricia Welch.
All right.
Thank you so much. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene in just a bit.
He likes to read. She likes to sing and act. They both love the Coachella Valley. And they love talking about the desert scene with you on Radio 111. Here's Bonnie G. and Brian Mendoza.
Hey, welcome to another segment of Today in Pop Culture History. So, or at least, it's not necessarily today, mostly like the week.
The week. Here we go. Okay.
The week. So, let's start with October 27th. So, in 1966, we got our first airing of It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Yeah, we love that.
It premiered on CBS. Okay. And it's aired every year since then, except for, I think... Actually, no, it aired last year. It's just that it aired in this weird thing where they finally put it on the networks.
Yeah, it was streaming too, and you had to pay for it. So, yeah. So
it's up to you either way. But I think that I'm glad that it's still on TV every once in a while because we need that.
It's fun, yeah.
In 1955, on the same day, Rebel Without a Cause came to theaters. Did you ever see that movie?
I did, actually.
The movie itself is considered a groundbreaking movie for how it looked at how American youth and their parents were not perfect individuals, like basically the decline, not necessarily the decay, but sort of like deconstructing what the family was, the family unit and all that.
But I think one of the most interesting things about that is all three of the stars died in unusual circumstances. James Dean was killed in a car crash. Sal Minnie was stabbed to death in a parking lot. And, of course, Natalie Wood drowned.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of bizarre.
It is one of those really bizarre things because it is one of those things where, like, in the movie, all three of them were troubled teenagers. Mm-hmm. And so it almost seems like they reflect real life.
Isn't that weird? What are the odds of that? All three of them, you know?
It's weird. And also because this is also a year where Natalie Wood, one of her movies gets remade this year. West Side Story is getting remade, and it's coming out in 2 months. Okay. So actually next month, because now it's going to be November pretty soon.
Yeah, very soon. Monday.
So it's going to be December that it's going to come out, West Side Story. So it is... I mean, it is...
I always thought that was really interesting.
It's one of those things where I always think of it as like this weird thing of three, where like three celebrities of a troubled movie or production sometimes have troubled lives. Like the three kids from... the Different Strokes TV show.
Yeah, they all had major,
They had major problems, but it is interesting that a movie about that.
And speaking of scary movies, Poltergeist, there's only two there, but the little girl, Heather O'Rourke, died of kidney fair or something as a child, and Dominique Dunn was strangled in the driveway by her boyfriend.
Yeah, the girl who plays her older sister in that film. There is a whole thing on Shudder. Like I'm not sponsored by Shudder, but they have this show called Cursed Films where they talked about these troubled
weird
productions.
things. Yeah,
and Poltergeist is one of the ones that had a lot of stuff happen to it. And I always thought, I'm not gonna make speculation, but I always thought it was never a good sign for them to use actual corpses, actual skeletons, for that famous scene where a character jumps into a pool and there's like actual skeletons.
Do you
and all
think
that.
maybe that was a curse of some kind?
It could be. I don't know. Like, that's a little too. I mean, if there's something that's going to start a curse, that would be it.
Yeah, I agree. What else?
I was going to say, in October 28th, Elsa Lancaster is born. And for those of you who don't know who she is, she played the monster's wife in Bride of Frankenstein. Okay. That famous look with the hair hair. She also had bit roles in Mary Poppins. She played Katie Nana. Mm-hmm. She also was in Blackbeard's Ghost and That Darn Cat. So she has had she had
a pretty good career.
Good career and all that. And what I think I like about her is that, like, her character hardly does anything in the movie, but because she's so good in it, she just sells it. And so even though her character just sort of moves around and all that, there is something really. That's one of my favorite horror films, is Bride of Frankenstein, just because it's so. I'm gonna put it this way: so queer. It's such a queer little movie. You have to watch it. But in October 29th, 1993. The Nightmare Before Christmas premiered. Have you ever seen that one?
I haven't. I mean, I know Tim Burton's a brilliant guy, but that kind of stuff it's not appeal to me that much. I mean, I know it was bits I've seen, it was very well done, but just not my kind of thing.
I think you would appreciate the soundtrack. So if you ever sat down and listened to the soundtrack, you'd appreciate it. Okay. But it's not. I don't know if I would recommend the movie to you, just because I do think the craft is there, but I don't think the story's all that great. Like, if you want a great story, that's not it. Okay. But the soundtrack. It has some good people in it. And then that same day, in 1971, NBC aired a special called The Grand Opening of Walt Disney World, where it was filmed over 3 days. They had special guest stars: Julie Andrews, Glenn Campbell, Buddy Hackett, Jonathan Winters, and Bob Hope, where it basically was this opening of Disney World, Walt Disney World. And did you ever get to see something like that? Like when they used to air like the tours of the Disneyland and Disney World?
I think I've maybe seen little bits and pieces of something like that. Yeah, I don't remember.
I think I saw a little bit of it, but I almost want to watch it again because all those stars in it. It's like, okay, if Julie Andrews is in it and Buddy Hackett's in it, then I'll watch it. Yeah. And 1969, on the same day, we got our first email. The first
1969?
1969.
Interesting. Wow.
So in UCLA, Professor Leonard Kleinrock and his student Charlie Klein attempted to send the first electronic message between two computers, and all it was just typing in login, but they couldn't type the whole word. So they just typed in LO. And the system crashed. We have a lot more. So later on, we're
going to be back with Amanda McBroom, who wrote The Rose, a lot of prolific songwriter at The Rose. She's going to be with us in just a bit on The Desert Scene.
Bonnie and Brayan continue with the Desert Scene on Radio 111. Here they are.
And we're back on the Desert Scene, and we are honored to be joined right now by a prolific singer-songwriter, Amanda McBroom, who will be appearing here at the Purple Room November 5th and 6th. Hello, Amanda. How are you doing today?
Hi, Bonnie. I am delighted to be talking to you on this beautiful, almost Halloween day.
Yes, it is beautiful. So you have just had an amazing career. First of all, you just writing The Rose alone. I'm a singer, and I've done The Rose many times. What a wonderful song it is for a singer. I have to ask you, was that something that you just sat down and boom, it came to you in a couple minutes?
That's the fastest one that's ever happened, and that happened before I was officially a songwriter. That was it. Songwriting was just a hobby with me, and that changed my life forever. Yeah, that's the fastest one.
And so, did someone call you up and they said, we got this movie, we want this song for this movie, or how did that happen?
No, it was the strangest. I call it a blessing, a huge blessing. I had written the song, and 2 years later, they were working on this film, and my beloved writing partner, Michelle Browerman, she and I have been writing songs together forever, and she called me up and she said, "Listen, they've got this movie called The Rose, and you've written this song called The Rose. Do you want me to send it in to the film company with some of the songs that I'm going to submit?" And I didn't know how to send a song to a film company, and I said, "Sure," and I gave her my cheesy little cassette, and she sent it to them, and they liked it, and Bette liked it, and that's how it got in the film. And it was a miracle because originally they were going to call that movie The Pearl, which was Janis Joplin's nickname.
Oh yeah.
And her family wouldn't let them use that. So thank goodness, because Rose is much easier to rhyme than Pearl.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. So you must have been just stunned at this huge success that came from that.
Totally. I was totally unprepared for everything, and everybody kept looking at me and saying, "Oh, you're a songwriter," and I kept saying, "No, I'm an actress. I do theater. I do television." And my husband finally said, "Honey, what's paying the mortgage?
Right.
Don't you think you ought to take a little responsibility for this?"
So then did more songs just kind of come to you after that, or was it just a struggle?
Well, some. As always, some of them are gentle surgery, and some of them just flow in through the window.
Yeah.
And I always firmly believe that even if you write one that is just a stinkeroo, there is a line in there somewhere that you can steal and put in another
Something
song.
else, yeah. Now, I don't know the answer, do you do both lyrics and music?
Sometimes.
Okay.
The Rose I did with some of my earlier stuff I did, and I write a lot of my really good ones with Michelle Browerman, my writing partner and pianist. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm looking at your bio here. Some of the songs in the Land Before Time film series and the musical Dangerous Beauty. Also starred in New York City, L.A., and San Francisco, and European productions of Jacques Brel is alive and well and living in Paris. Tell me about that experience.
Well, that was the beginning of my life in musical theater, really and truly. I was just out of college. I was at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival as a straight Shakespearean actress, and I went into San Francisco with a friend to see a play called Jacques Brel. And I said, "Who's Jacques Brel?" And my friend said, "I don't know. I think he's French. Let's go."
Yeah.
And we went to see it, and I was astounded. I said, I listened to them sing, and my hair caught fire, and I said, "I want to do this." I'd never heard music like that in my life.
Wow.
It was so sexy and smart and political and passionate, and I wound up auditioning and getting in the show, and also the star of the show at the time was the man who became my husband. And so I learned all about how to sing that kind of music from him. And then I do believe that Jacques Brel is the person who made me want to become a songwriter.
Wow.
Because I learned about his storytelling. To him, every song is an acting monologue.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Description. And you made your Broadway debut in the Cy Coleman and Dorothy Fields musical Seesaw. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, that was my first Broadway experience. I met so many wonderful people, and I had this lovely role in it up until 3 weeks before it opened, when they said, "Oh, no, we're going to turn this into a monologue, and you can go into the chorus and wear 42 wigs and sing and, and do high kicks and stuff."
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not going to do that. So I was the first person to leave the show.
Wow. Well, good for you. You got to stand up for yourself.
Story. Huh?
You got to stand up for yourself. Good for you for making it.
I didn't. Well, yeah, and I was very young at the time and not really one to stand up, but that was just something I said, I'm not made for the chorus.
Yeah.
I just am not.
Yeah. And I'm looking at your television, guest starring recurring roles: Starsky and Hutch, Star Trek, Heart to Heart, Taxi, Charlie's Angels, Lou Grant, MASH. Wow, lots of television. So what, and voice acting as well. So what would you what's your number one title? I mean, you do a lot of different things, but what comes first? Is it songwriting? Is it singing?
Now, these days, it's concert work. Yes, it's cabaret and concert work and songwriting.
Okay.
It used to be a lot more acting than there is now.
Mm-hmm.
But, the thing that's you were saying the thing about Land Before Time, my writing partner and I, we've written the songs for 14 Land Before Time animated features, and we're just working on another Curious George. So we write songs for animated films for kids, which is one of my favorite things in the world to do. Mm-hmm. It's so delightful not to write a love song,
Yeah.
To write a song for something, and knowing that little kids are going to sing your songs is huge.
Yeah.
I think of myself more as a singer-songwriter than an actress now.
Okay. So, Amanda, my partner Brian has a question for you.
First, I wanted to say that The Rose should have been nominated for Best Original Song. That was better than the Norma Ray song.
Absolutely.
That song from Norma Ray was not good. I listened to that.
It was okay, but it wasn't The Rose.
No, certainly not. Norma Ray's great, but I gotta say that. I wanted to say that, and also I just wanted to say that I noticed in your filmography that you were part of the music department of Only Yesterday, which is a Japanese animated film, and I wanted to ask you about how that worked out, because I know that they have their. Did you do the dubbing for it? How was that a challenge to be able to produce music for that film and trying to remain faithful to it? I never knew that happened.
Really?
The rights to the song go through Warner Chappell, and they never tell me anything. And I didn't know until like a couple of months ago that it was in that film. And so I immediately went and looked up that film and loved it. It's a beautiful film. And whoever the lovely woman who sang it in Japanese, which thrilled me. Hearing a song you write in another language is so exciting.
I hope you got.
I didn't know it was happening.
I hope you got paid for that. Your proper payment for that. My goodness.
There's probably some royalties in there. Absolutely.
Now I want to make sure we get this in before. So you're going to be at the Purple Room November 5th and 6th. And
yes,
Purple Room's
I am so excited.
Fabulous, and Michael Holmes is wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, he's adorable. The room is beautiful.
Yep.
And I must admit, I'm slightly nervous. This will be my first time in high heels in 18 months.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about how you put together your cabaret show.
First of all, I think of where I am and who I think the audience will be. Mm-hmm. And, of course, with the Purple Room, you got sophisticates and people who love to laugh and love to hear good music. And then I think about, okay, we've got to have some standards, something so that people's ears can relax. Mm-hmm. And then I like to add, some of my new stuff so that people will, because if I don't sing it, who's going to hear it? And then, so it's a kind of a mix and match of things. Like I'll do a couple of Cole Porter tunes, and then a couple of mine, and maybe a little Jacques Brel. And it's a real mix and match. And I I structure it like a carnival ride. You start in one place, and then you go really high, and then you dip down, and then you go high, and then you dip down, and hopefully by the end, everybody's standing up and having a great time.
And tell me about the thing about cabaret. I think for both the performers and the audience is the intimacy of it, and they're really getting to know a little bit of who the performer is, not just enjoying great singing. Would you?
Absolutely, as my beloved pal Michelle says, cabaret is personal theater. Mm-hmm. It's just you and a small, intimate group of people sharing a night of hopefully laughter and tears together. Yeah, very intimate.
Yeah,
I love that.
Are you somebody that vocalizes every day, or do you have any special preparations that you do before a show?
Well, I don't vocalize every day. I started vocalizing like a month ago for this because I hadn't sung in 16 months either. So yeah, I said, do I still have chops? Yes, I do. How lovely.
Yes.
So now I'm working out every day vocally to get ready for it, and then I'm going to try on my clothes and see what fits.
So tell me about, I want to go back to songwriting for a second. I've always been wondered about this. People who write, particularly music, do ideas come to you at 3 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, or do you sit down on, Friday I'm going to sit down for a couple hours and see if I can crank something out?
For me, it's when something just brings such a hard chime in my head. I say, "Oh, that's a song," and then I am compelled to sit down. I am not a really professional songwriter. And every day I'll sit at the piano until something happens. I don't do it that way. I do it when the story wants to come through.
Okay. And also, I mean, you have had such a varied career and amazing. Is there what's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet? Is there some project or some role or some type of song that you haven't done that you'd like to do?
Wow. I'd love to go back and I'd love to do a Broadway show. Yes, I would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little too old for the Julie Andrews roles, but I've done Sweeney Todd before. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Or a little night music again in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Anything for the mature woman.
How about Sunset Boulevard? Could you see yourself doing that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a heck of a part and some great music.
It's a heck of a part. You got to have some chops up there for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is I always love to ask singers, if you're, at a little club somewhere in New York and going to see a friend perform and they say, Amanda McBroom's in the audience, come on up and do a song. Other than The Rose, do you have a go-to song that you like to do if someone asks you at the spur of the moment to sing?
Well, yeah, I have a couple, because usually, there's one that I wrote that everybody seems to know, a lot of people seem to know, that I wrote for my father called Errol Flynn, which is another one of my go-to songs. Barbara Cook used to recorded it and used to perform it all the time, and it's kind of a cabaret standard.
Okay, all right. And also, I'd love to ask this question. When you go see another performer, what are you hoping for? What do you hope to see or hear from other performers, other singers, cabaret singers?
Oh, I love to be thrilled. I love to be surprised. I love to hear songs I haven't heard before, or a standard done in a new
way,
fresh.
Yeah.
Not arch, not phony baloney way, just, doing it with bells and whistles. But I love to hear other people's takes on familiar material.
Yeah.
And I'm always thrilled when somebody sings one of mine.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they do it so differently. And I learn every time from people who do my stuff. And I say, I could steal that. Okay, that's good.
Excellent. Amanda McBroom, what a delight. I'm so excited that you're coming to the Purple Room November 5th and 6th, purpleroom.com. Thank you so much for being here. What a joy to chat with you.
I'm delighted to chat with you. I need to talk to you more about you singing.
Okay.
You're going to have to do that.
We'll do that.
Okay.
We'll make a day. All right. Best of luck. Knock 'em dead on the 5th and 6th of the Purple Room. Miss Amanda McBroom, thank you so much. We'll be back with more on the Desert Scene.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
The Desert Scene on Radio 111. Cultural events and the people who make it happen in the desert cities with Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza.
So we're going to continue our pop culture trivia.
Okay.
So October 30th in the year 2003, Wicked opens for the first time with Idina Menzel.
I've never seen that.
Chenoweth.
I wish I'd seen it with them, but I've never seen the show. I'd like to see it.
I think it's a really great show because it takes this subversive way of like taking the villain from a musical, from The Wizard of Oz, and just flipping it upside down and making you really sympathize with her. And also, Kristen Chenoweth got engaged.
Yay!
So,
I saw a few months ago. I did the open mic with. His name just went out of my head. Michael. I'll have to look it up. Oh, I'm so sorry. That they do every now and then at Oscars, an open mic. He comes to town, and she was there one night. She was there, and she got up to sing, and she was with her sweetie at the time. So congratulations, that's great.
Michael Orland.
Thank you, Orland. God, I'm smacked myself. Okay.
I was gonna say that I'm always happy to see Kristen Chenoweth succeeding because I think those two just really are magnetic, and the fact is that I don't think they get enough parts. She lots of charisma. She's very bubbly and just seems like a very nice person. I chatted with her a little bit. She's a very nice person. Yeah. No, that's what I imagine. I also imagine that I also imagine she's very witty in real life. That if someone throws something at her, she's very gracious.
And the song that I really love from that, a lot of good songs, but Because I Knew You, I've Been Changed for Good. It's just a great song.
That one's a really good one.
Girl buddy song. Yeah.
I just love the fact that the original book itself wasn't very good with like the friendship between the women. So like when the musical came in and changed that, I always thought of it as one of those things where the musical completely changed a book for the better. Because when you go back and read the book, you almost feel like you're losing out on something because the two women are not really good friends
as they are in the music.
And in the musical, it's much more complex. Like, I think that Elphaba doesn't feel. You understand her feelings a lot better in the musical as opposed in the book where you're like, oh, she wants to fight. It's very political. Like, it's a really political book, and compared to like the show. But in the show, it's very like, let's be friends. And the politics of the world are more of seasoning on top of this beautiful friendship. And I love it. And that same day, October 30th, but in 1938, Orson Welles scares the world with The War of the Worlds. And he sure did. Yeah. And he did create like not as much widespread panic, but still like enough for people to notice. Like, it's, from what I've heard, is that it wasn't as big, but in a lot of towns people did freak out and think that there was an actual invasion. And when you hear it, I'm like, it's a true testament to Orson Welles that he was that talented.
He was a genius. Yeah, he apparently could be prickly in person, but he was a very talented guy.
I saw this video where they recorded him talking about peas or something like that, or like he did this commercial where he got mad at it saying, so you want me to talk about peas, but not those types of peas, these types of peas. So what makes these types of peas better than these other types of peas? I just want to make sure, because I want to understand your directing. You see, I wouldn't direct my actors this way.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there the whole time like, okay, Orson, it's just peas,
Just relax.
Just relax.
Chill out. Chill out.
Like, he would read a line and he would just stop himself every once in a while and say, I wouldn't write it that way, you see. And I'm like, they're not writing Citizen Kane. They're writing the Pea commercial.
He had an ego issue, I think, yeah.
And then October 31st, not only is it Halloween, but there's also an interesting pop culture trivia. Gary Estrada, you might not know who he is, but he had the mission of visiting the Haunted Mansion 999 times at the Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdoms.
Why would you want to do that?
So he started in January of that year, and he finished on Halloween of that same year in 2005. Okay. And he said, why? And they asked him, why did you do 999 times? And he said, because that's how many haunted haunts happy haunts are supposed to be living there. So apparently there's like 999 almost 1,000 ghosts living in there.
Okay.
I would get tired.
I just got to throw this out. We talked about this before. Because we're talking about Halloween. The scariest movie I ever saw, for me, of course, Psycho is right up there. Carrie is right up there. But for me, the movie that freaked me out was Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, the
with
one
Gary
with Keanu
Oldman.
Reeves. Oh, yes.
Scared the bejeebers out of me. That movie just flipped me out. It really did.
That one's a pretty scary one, and I think that one of the scariest scenes is the one where the woman is like this seductress, and she's like, kiss me, my darling, and you can just see that she's just a full-blown vampire, and that's scary. And
it was really well done. Very well done.
For me, the scariest film I've ever seen used to be The Exorcist, but I saw Peeping Tom.
I never saw The Exorcist. Is pretty darn scary, but I had already read the book, so at least you're prepared, with The Exorcist.
The other scariest thing about The Exorcist is the fact that the sequel was as bad as I remember it being.
I don't think I ever saw the sequel.
I saw the sequel, and I turned it on, and I was bored halfway, and I said, "This is the true fear is dying of boredom watching this."
Sequels. In general, I think sequels are not a good idea.
Did you know they're making, for the most part. Did you know they're making another trilogy of movies for The Exorcist, and they're gonna have Ellen Bernstein back?
Okay, whatever. Okay, thank you so much to our guests, Chip Miller, fabulous. Thank you, Patricia Welch, wonderful song, and Amanda McBroom, what a delight. Thank you so much to our guests. And if you're gonna go out for Halloween, stay safe. Whether you're adult, child, whatever, have fun, but stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Happy Halloween.